Welcome to the Early Edge presented by BetMGM. Happy Halloween, everybody. We've got kind of a scary game on Thursday Night Football to kick it off. One very disappointing team and one potentially overachieving team in the Houston Texans. Let's break it down with Mike McClure, with R.J. White. Will Brinson will be along very shortly. And we just want to jump right into this matchup. The Jets favored at home despite being 2-6. One thing that sticks out for me, RJ, is Greg Zuerlein will not be there, so he will not be able to cost them a game in the fourth quarter. Are you looking at it the same way as I am?
Early in the week, but I think it's tougher to play them at this number considering they still have a bunch of injuries, particularly on the defensive side. Houston's pass defense has been good all year, number 2 in net yards per attempt, only allowed more than 200 net pass yards once. Houston's defense overall has allowed 20 plus in all but one game, though, because they rank 30th in red zone success rate. So it kind of sets up for the Jets offense to finally get on track, especially if they decide to commit to the run game more. At +1.5, at +2, which is where we're seeing the line now, I think you throw the Texans in a teaser, as the Jets just haven't been playing well enough to think that they're going to win by margin. So they're the first half of my teaser. I have them teased with Philly this week.
And I like the Jets money line here, but like you, RJ, I think the teaser look the other way is a fine look because I expect this to be anything but straightforward. If you've known anything about the New York Jets this season, I think this is still, knock on wood, another great spot for them. They get the Texans in a beat up fashion on a short week on their home field in primetime. Aaron Rodgers has still been a good quarterback in primetime. He's got all of his weapons offensively. It's just a matter of, can they not have the silly mistake? You know, some of the interceptions have not been Aaron Rodgers' fault. I still believe in the Jets at this particular price point. I made this game a 59% winner for the Jets, meaning this price point should be -144. Still enough value left here for me to speculate on this team. The season is all but over, but I will back them one last time here, as I think the Texans have a massive uphill battle.
A lot of faith in the New York Jets. One good trend for all of us Jets backers is the home teams on Halloween have cashed at a pretty nice rate. I'm playing Joe Mixon over 20.5 carries. I think the one thing I am absolutely certain about is the Texans will come out and run the ball and keep running the ball. This guy has 25 carries each of the past 2 weeks. He had a 30 carry game earlier. You see the 13 carry game against the Patriots, that was a blowout, and they were scoring very fast. This is going to be a tight game, a low-scoring game, and I just think Joe Mixon, there's no competition for carries. Dameon Pierce is out. The receivers are out. A big Joe Mixon game. I don't know how efficient he'll be, but I do love him to get at least 21 carries. Well, that was Thursday Night Football. We have an incredible, jam-packed Sunday slate highlighted by some very key divisional matchups. We're going to take a look at one of those, the Dolphins trying to save their season in Buffalo. Can the offense keep it going, and can the defense get it together and slow down Josh Allen? We'll be right back on the Early Edge presented by BetMGM.
Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Week 9 Pick Show. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, R.J. White here to give you picks and best bets for every single game of the slate. I actually love Halloween. I wasn't in the first segment, but I love Halloween because, quite frankly, it's the only excuse you have to wear a torn up T-shirt on television, and obviously a stupid wig and a bandana and sunglasses. One time, just for the record, Jamie Eisenberg and Dave Richards should have, frankly, been sent to HR. They made me dress up as Wilma from the Flintstones for a Halloween show. But they got that dress very freeing on television. You'd be surprised at how much air you get through there. Much better than wearing a suit. Anywho, I know Larry mentioned the last part, Joe Mixon over 20.5 carries. I like the Joe Mixon for over 82.5 rush yards as a best bet as well. You can do some fun stuff with his alt line overs up to 100, and then you Joe Mixon anytime touchdown. I think he's going to get fed with the way the Jets defense works. And speaking of being fed, Cowboys and Falcons. Cowboys are in a pickle right now. Falcons are kind of rolling on offense. Falcons are -3 with a total of 52. I'm going to take another player prop, and it's a high volume player prop in this one. CeeDee Lamb over 84.5 receiving yards. We saw in week 8 how CeeDee Lamb has different pathways to getting over his prop numbers. The Cowboys can come out and play well on offense. CeeDee is going to be the focal point, or the Cowboys can come out and struggle on offense. And if they do, CeeDee is still very capable of getting there. When you look at the Falcons, they have given up a ton of big games to top-end wide receivers. Devontae Smith, 7, 76, and 1. Rashee Rice, 10, 1, 12, and 1. Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed combined for 16 and 170. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, 10, 126. Deontay Johnson, 6, 78, and 1. DK Metcalf, 4, 99, and 1. And then even Cade Otton got in the end zone twice on National Tight End Day last week. This is a defense that will give up passing yards. CeeDee is the focal point. I love CeeDee Lamb overs this week. Think he certainly finds the end zone, and their schedule gets very forgiving for this bad Dallas offense. Mike, do you have a lean on this game?
I do. I like your look on CeeDee Lamb. I think he's definitely looking at another 100-yard game. When I look at this spot, though, the most favorable line I found here, the Dallas Cowboys first half team total over 12.5. The fact that I could get there with a touchdown and 2 field goals in a dome with Brandon Aubrey, who can kick from 60, and a defense that surrenders passing yards, that means we're moving the football between the 20s almost guaranteed. The difference in the point scoring just comes down to, can you punch it in the end zone or not? I need 1 touchdown, 2 field goals. Absolutely love the Cowboys first half team total over 12.5.
All right. Dolphins at Bills. The Bills -6 in this game. Miami finally gets to a talk about lower back, but can't capitalize against Arizona last week. Buffalo looks like, kind of a low-end truck here, RJ. And it's for me, it's kind of hard to get in front of Buffalo, especially knowing they could. They're not going to wrap up the division in week 9, but if they win this game and the Jets lose on Thursday night, obviously, that's happening this evening. They're like 4 games up in the division already. That's wild.
And that's why I don't know if we get 100% effort from Bills. They've been rolling and they dominated the first meeting against Miami, but I think they might be a little bit overvalued after the score lines they've put up the last 2 weeks. And both of those games were close in the first half. That Seattle game could have been 14-14 at halftime, if not for, the Seahawks not picking up 3 yards close to the goal line, where they were right there at the goal line twice and they got 3 points out of it. The first game saw 3 of 4 first half scoring drives start in Miami territory for Buffalo. Miami's offense was awful in that game. I think they'll be better here. Miami's defense collapsed against Arizona late, but Buffalo's been dealing with injuries at receiver. We saw Amari Cooper limited in practice. That could lower the ceiling on the offense. Miami's run offense have been strong the last 3 games too, and pass offense is Tua back. They're capable of scoring any number of points. My lean here for the full game is to the Dolphins. I really like taking the Dolphins plus 3.5 in the first half when the Bills have not been at their best the last few weeks.
I dig that. I'm going to put the Bills in a teaser here. I really think if you look at Buffalo and the history with Sean McDermott and, obviously with Josh Allen as well, they get up for these divisional games and they don't mind. They've taken week 18, week 17, week 18 games where they didn't really have to win. They still run the starters out for a little bit and then run the score up with their backups. They dominate divisional games. They've covered 4 of their last 5, and the only one they didn't was a 15.5-point spread against the Patriots. This is their division. When Sean McDermott and Josh Allen got there, Bill Belichick, the specter of Belichick was still lingering. They want to go out and let people know the AFC East runs through Buffalo. I think they find a way to win this game, which is why I'm putting them in a teaser with another team that we'll talk about next. But you get the Bills down to a pick. Just go out and win the game at home against a kind of banged up Miami team that is desperate. But I think Buffalo shows up in a big way in the divisional matchup. We have Chargers at Browns. The Jameis Winston era rolls on after a successful first game. Browns can't even clear 20 points or 200 yards passing through the first 7 weeks of the season, Jameis comes in and he goes for 300 and the Browns light up the scoreboard against the Ravens. Larry, do you think we see Jameis firing on all cylinders again this week?
Firing on all cylinders, which does include maybe throwing for 300, but it also includes a couple of picks. Kyle Hamilton drops an easy one there. We saw all the good, but we didn't really see any of the bad yet. And I just think it's a bad spot for the Browns defense. When you miss your middle linebacker, JOK, 61 tackles, the leader of that defense, Denzel Ward dealing with a concussion, your top cornerback, and this Chargers offense quietly since the bye, throwing the ball a ton. The last 2 games, Herbert averaging almost 9 yards per attempt. We saw Ladd McConkey go off last week, could get other weapons back. So I think the Browns, they'll be more successful offensively. It's a breath of fresh air to not have Deshaun Watson in there, but I think the Chargers outscore them and cover the small number.
I'm also on the Chargers here. You can kind of see that the market was going to bet this down because of how good Jameis looked, and everybody's excited about the Browns again. It's even available at 1 at some places now. Kind of wait to see how low you can get it. But the look-ahead line here was Chargers -3.5, and the injuries swung to the Chargers side, as Larry mentioned, with JOK and Denzel Ward hurt, and Chargers potentially getting guys back. I know nobody's going to put a ton of line value on guys like Quentin Johnston and DJ Chark, but having the receivers in place that they want to execute that offense when they're passing more is a big deal. And the Chargers defense has allowed 13 points per game. So even if we're confident in Cleveland's offense, they can wind up losing like a 20-17 type of game because the Chargers defense is playing well, and we still get the cover here. So I like taking the Chargers too. They're a best bet for me.
Right there with you guys. I like the Chargers. I put them on the money line here. When I look at the Browns, I think that it was fantastic what they were able to do with Jameis. But as you guys mentioned, firing on all cylinders for Jameis means 2 of those cylinders are handing the ball to the defense in a lot of situations. So this Chargers team, I think, is just simply underrated defensively and maybe offensively as well, just because the style of play doesn't necessarily match today's NFL, but that's who they are and that's what they're comfortable with. And they're fine playing these tight 1-possession games. I think they're great offensively. I love Dobbins, but Ladd McConkey is going to be an awesome piece for that offense going forward. He's just incredible. So I trust them a lot more in late game situation than I do Jameis. Because of that, I think the Browns are just simply overvalued. So give me Chargers money line here.
By the way, Jim Harbaugh came out this week and said that he's like, I watched the film on Ladd McConkey. It's my job. And he reminds me of Steve Smith, which is a crazy comparison. I think the pre-draft stuff for Ladd McConkey was almost entirely like Wes Welker and Julian Edelman. You can draw your own conclusions there. One of the downsides of having sunglasses and wearing a costume is an inability to read the rundown. I also think I should have snapped into a Slim Jim and wouldn't have skipped over Raiders Bengals. Let's go back to it. I mentioned, Bengals 7-point favorites here, 46.5 total. RJ, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, best bet here is going to be on the Bengals. I make this line a lot higher, so once it gets down to 7, I want to get it on the Bengals. If Cincy had beaten Philly, I would have considered this a trap game, though, with Baltimore on Thursday Night Football up next. But they're 3-5 now. They need to, focus and go out and get wins, and I think we'll get a focused Bengals team here. Their offense is 5th in third down and red zone success rates. They're going to handle a Vegas defense that has been lit up by Denver and Pittsburgh in recent weeks. I think they're going to score a bunch of points in this game. And while the Bengals defense struggles against good offenses, it mostly holds bad offenses under 17 points. So I think we could get something like a 30-16 type of final here where it's not that close and we're not really sweating the -7.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the Bengals a lot. I'm going to take the Bengals and put them in that teaser with the Bills, get the Bengals down to 1. Joe Burrow came out. Now, T. Higgins not seen at practice on Thursday with that quad issue. That's a big factor. T. Higgins matters a lot for that offense. But Joe Burrow came out on Thursday as well and said it's a must-win game. He's calling a late or early November game against the Raiders at home must win. And I don't know that he's necessarily wrong when you have teams like the Chargers and the Broncos who are making moves in the AFC. If Cincy wants to get back into the playoff race, they have to start this week and they have to start effectively against a bad Raiders team that might pack it up. The only real options Las Vegas has is Brock Bowers. And I think Cincy, if you look at the 2 weeks before the Eagles game, was starting to come back around defensively against bad offenses, granted. But offensively, they've started to get things going a little early against the Eagles and then slowed down. I think they can kind of name their number here against the Raiders. I like them and the Bills to both win outright, tease it, money line, parlay it, whatever is the better value. I mentioned the Broncos. They are making moves. Bo Nix, NFC Offensive Rookie of the Month. I mean, what a run for Bo Nix and Sean Payton. Big-time test against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens coming up this week, though. We will give you our best bets for that game and much more coming up next on The Early Edge. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Week 9 Picks Show. Happy Halloween to everybody. Will Brinson, the only one dressed up on the show. Not afraid to make an idiot of myself. Don't care. Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, R.J. White. Dressed up as you know what you guys are dressed up as? Sharp bettors. That's what you're dressed up as. And we're here to give best bets for every single game on the slate. We'll start this segment with Commanders at Giants. Imagine traveling back in time and telling somebody that the Commanders would be a 4-point road favorite in Week 9 for this Halloween weekend, but they are, Mike. Total of 44.5 here. What do you like in this game?
I like the Commander side. Liked it a lot more at 3.5. Still play at 4 though. I made the number in this one 6, which is just a massive number for a divisional road game here. But I just have no faith in the Giants right now, especially Tracy's out. He's been a significant addition to that offense. And if you remove that from this offense, that makes it easier to focus on Malik Neighbors. And you look at this Washington team, Jaden Daniels, while he's not going to run nearly as much, he's still really, really good in that passing game. And the team is just rallied around it having success. We've seen that defense in the first few weeks be one of the worst in the league to really turn it on of late. And it's just the energy in the building is resonating throughout every unit on this football team. They've got the big emotional win last week, really an improbable fashion, one that they didn't deserve. And it sets them up in a great spot to make the playoffs now. And that is ultimately what keeps them focused in this game. I think they win this one by a touchdown.
How about the Giants at home, 0-4, averaging less than 8 points per game, and now you have to deal with the Commanders' pass rush that I think the Cowboys would like to have Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler back right now. They pressured Caleb Williams last week 52% of the time, so this pass rush is actually legit. And the Giants, without their left tackle, the past 2 weeks have given up a 50% pressure rate. So I think it's another rough night for Daniel Jones. I laid the points with Washington.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Jerry Jones, I don't know if you noticed, but your defense stunk before Dan Quinn got there. It was top 10 in the league every single year that Dan Quinn was there. And now it stinks again that Dan Quinn's gone. And the Commanders have a top 10 scoring defense in the NFL in Dan Quinn's first year after being 32nd in the league in scoring defense last year under Ron Rivera. Having said all that, I like this over at 44.5. I think the Commanders will be able to move the ball very easily against this Giants defense. Jaden Daniels will run plenty. You will see him hook up with Terry McLaurin. And then I just think you sort of have like we saw with San Francisco and Dallas where the Cowboys are able to engineer some garbage time stuff. I think we get that from Daniel Jones / Drew Lock late with Malik Neighbors in there. The one red flag I would have is that we saw what happened. Nick Sirianni pulled all his guys in that beatdown by the Eagles and the Giants. And then Brian Dable turned around and did the same thing and basically pulled Neighbors out, pulled Daniel Jones out. You got to figure Daniel Jones' leash getting a little bit shorter here, but I do like the over in this as long as it stays under 45. Broncos at Ravens. Broncos have been a surprise this season, man. I mean, Sean Payton doing great coaching work with Bo Nix. I mean, they beat the Panthers, which what do you want? You want a golf clap? Congrats. Good job. But I mean, they did it handily. And now they head to Baltimore to play a Ravens team that's favored by 9 with a total of 46.5 here, RJ. Worth noting, Lamar Jackson not seen it practice again on Thursday. John Harbaugh downplayed it significantly on Wednesday, saying that it was just sort of a veteran rest day. But 2 days in a row, start to get your antenna up a little bit, especially if you're laying 9 whole points.
Yeah, hard to pick this game without knowing Lamar's status. Denver is 5-3, so you're like, how can they be catching 9 points in this game? 3 of those wins came against bad quarterbacks. One was in brutal conditions, that Jets game that was a torrential downpour, and one was against a decimated Tampa Bay defense. So you kind of really still need to prove yourself, I think, if you're Denver, even at 5-3. Baltimore's defense is elite against the run, so you would figure Nix would have to win the game with his arm, and something we haven't seen him have to do. But then the Baltimore also put Michael Pierce on the injured reserve. So when you're down that type of talent in the middle of the defense, maybe it's going to be a little easier to run the ball. So we'll see. I don't want to back Nix in this spot in Baltimore. Could definitely see a backdoor cover with how much Baltimore's pass defense has struggled. And then Lamar news obviously would swing the line massively if he is ruled out. So maybe we'll get some pessimism on that. And if we think he's going to be in, we can tease the Ravens down once it gets to 8.5. But at this point, it's just a stay away.
Assuming Lamar is good to go, this is going to be a shock to the system for the Broncos defense. It's not Spencer Rattler. It's not Bryce Young. It's not Gardner Minshew. This is the number one offense in football, but I'm not going to lay the points. I'm going to go over the total because, as you said, Bo Nix and that offense have been improving as well. The Ravens games have gone 7-1 to the over, clearing the total by 4 points per game. And you look at every single opponent that's faced the Ravens, who are giving up a ton of passing yards, has scored 23 or more, except for the Buffalo Bills. Sorry, RJ, your Buffalo Bills on that flat spot when they got waxed on Sunday Night Football. Every other team has scored 23. So I think Denver does their part, and we get this over the total.
By the way, shout out to the production team, everybody on the back end for these graphics. I'm giggling every time I see an "oh my gourd" and various Halloween / fall related graphics. Clearly, I'm the only one who enjoys this holiday. Patriots at Titans. Titans are -3.5. That's right. Mason Rudolph or the ghoulish corpse of Will Levis is laying 3.5 points at home. I mean, the Titans are a terrible football team. So are the Patriots. Drake May, I believe the Patriots said literally 20 minutes ago, they're, quote, hopeful about his status for this game. I don't know that it really matters for the under 38 that I'm going to take here. You see, look at this, dressing as the Undertaker. Beautiful stuff, graphics team. They're the worst in terms of total yards per game, the worst in pass yards per game. Yes, there could be turnovers by both teams here that would screw up this total, but I think we see a lot of field goals, low-scoring game in Nashville. And even if Drake May comes back and plays, I think the Patriots will be cognizant about the fact that he suffered an injury and will want to get the ball out of a head injury, will want to get the ball out of his hands quick, and will not have very many designed runs or ask him not to scramble a lot. And if Jacoby Brissett's in there, I think the total should be even lower. So I've got the under in this one. And Mike, I believe you have a lean here.
Yeah, I will lean with you on the under, just around that key number 37. I think that this game screams 20-17, if any game in the NFL can. So at 38, I would lean to the under here. I would like to know who's playing quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. If it's Mason Rudolph, I think that gives them a much better chance to win. If it's Will Levis, I'm not touching the total because he could gift any team a touchdown at any moment here. So lean to the under at 38, but certainly wouldn't play anything without knowing the starting quarterback situation on both sides.
Yep, I think that's actually better advice than what I gave, which is not surprising considering how you're dressed and considering how I'm dressed. If you thought there wasn't a worse game on the slate than Patriots-Titans, not so fast, my friend. We've got Saints at Panthers coming up this weekend as well. I'm not sure if it's on. Yeah, it's on CBS, so I probably shouldn't be talking about how bad it is. But I mean, I'm sure everyone's going to love to watch this game in Charlotte. Saints are favored by 7.5 points on the road at Carolina. Tons of injuries to the key guys, but it seems more optimistic, Larry, in terms of like Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara will be there, of course. It's just the Saints project a little more optimistically, hence this line against a Panthers team that, I mean, quite frankly, I think they'll be able to do a little bit on offense here. But man, like defensively, they are by far and away, the worst defense in football. They can't stop anything.
Yeah, and the Panthers getting back some key guys. And yes, it seems appetizing when this line flips from 6.5 to 7.5 to take a home dog with how bad the Saints have looked. But Derek Carr being back and facing Bryce Young is pretty much all you have to know about this spread. I agree with you. I don't think there's any way you could back the Panthers with how poorly their defense is playing. I mean, they start off with one nice drive last week, because they were gifted the ball at the 35-yard line, and then do nothing the rest of the game. And that defense just gets exhausted because the offense can't stay on the field. So I feel for those guys, but I would also lay it.
Yeah, I think it's tough to lay this number. I mean, it got up to 7.5 once Bryce Young was announced as starter. Even with Andy Dalton potentially coming back, they're going to start Young in this game, it looks like. And then the market said, okay, that's finally too much for us with Carolina. The Saints shouldn't be 7.5. So it's 7 everywhere right now. I would struggle to play it at 7. The car is likely back, but I think it's kind of a ridiculous spread. Carolina is also getting healthier. It looks like they could have some guys back on defense and even the offensive side too. And I don't think Carr is going to hit the ground running coming off a multi-week injury. So I wouldn't lay this number with the Saints, if anything. If I'm going to play anything, it's the Panthers, but we decided long ago we're not playing the Panthers anymore. So it's just a stay away game.
That's right. Yeah, we don't bet on the Panthers. Just whatever you do, don't bet on. Just you put your good play slots or something like that, like something with less variance in the Carolina Panthers offense and defense. Not all the games are bad this week, just those two. There's a scorcher in the NFC North. Jordan Love, Jared Goff, playing MVP football over the last 4 weeks. Packers offense doesn't matter if it's Malik Willis, Jordan Love, who's very optimistic about coming back. These two teams are putting up points, and we will tell you what to bet on in this game coming up next on the Early Edge. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Week 9 NFL Early Edge Pick Show here on CBS Sports Network. I can't really come up with any more creative intros, whatever. I don't care. Lions and the Packers is a great game on Sunday in the 4 o'clock slate. The Lions -3.5, what we're working with. Worth noting, as RJ said during the break, these lines are moving. The totals moved down a little bit too. Look, this is a massive game, and I would think that the move from 3.5 to 2.5 is directly reflective of Jordan Love saying that he's extremely optimistic about playing. It seems like it's trending that way. He was spotted at practice on Thursday. Clearly, Jordan Love. I mean, Malik Willis has been like all the credit in the world to Matt LaFleur for everything that they've done with that offense when Malik Willis has been in there. Really, really impressive stuff. Great coaching work. Their run game's tremendous. But if Jordan Love's a clear upgrade there, especially with all his weapons in tow. I'm going to take the over here. And I want to watch the weather, because it does look like it'll be 50s and maybe rainy in Green Bay. It's also Jared Goff's first game outdoors, which is a little concerning. But, man, you look at what the Lions are doing, not just on offense, but like scoring on special teams, defensive, giving them short fields in certain spots. This is a team playing at the height of its powers right now. The Packers are not going to roll over, though, and you can get after the Detroit secondary. They're opportunistic, but they'll give up some bigger plays. I think we see Jordan Love with some deep shots here, and I think the Lions will keep finding a way to score. I realize both teams do want to run the ball when they can. I think you'll see that a little less effective in the spot, particularly with Green Bay against Detroit, and we end up in kind of a shootout mode here, getting a lot of points. So, RJ, I'm going to take the over. Do you have a lean in this game?
Yeah, I think I like the Packers here. I wanted to take them at 3.5, but the way the injury things have been moving against me all year, I didn't want to lock it in too early till we knew more. I think it's interesting. You talk about he practiced Thursday. I believe it was actually bad weather too. Like he might have been out there in the rain. And I mean, if you have a guy working through injury, you would figure that you don't give him that opportunity to re-injure himself by slipping on a wet field. So if that is the case, I think that's interesting to where they think he is health-wise. This line, I think Detroit's getting full credit for elite play while Green Bay isn't getting enough respect. I think if Love is ruled in, this line gets down to pick 'em, and even there, I'm probably lean toward the Packers side. So if you want to grab it now, if you're confident Love's going to play, grab it now. But if there's any question at all, I wouldn't take it, because this line gets back up over 3 if he doesn't play. And then if you do like the Packers, you definitely want to be on that side.
Yeah, maybe even a teaser leg too. If you're confident that Love's going to play, you get the Packers up to like 9.5 or 8.5, which is a pretty good look. Rams at the Seahawks. The NFC West, man, I'll tell you what, it is wide open. And Matthew Stafford has a chance to basically, you go into Seattle, you beat the Seahawks, and you are tied for first place in the NFC West. We talked about this on the shows last week. I mean, we're on Thursday. Cooper Kupp's getting traded to the Vikings. Like Matt Stafford's getting traded somewhere. They're shutting it down. They're calling off the dogs, and suddenly the Rams have new life, and that's why I'm giving out. Only once a year do I do this, or once a week, once a year, whatever. My 10-unit whale play of the season, of the century. That's right. It's the Rams -1.5 at the Seahawks. Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay and Cooper Kupp and Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua all saw Mike McDonald's defense last year with the Ravens with better personnel, and they carved them up. Matthew Stafford had like 280-some yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Kyron Williams ran 25 times for 100-plus yards. I think it was like 125 or 115 maybe. This is an offense for the Rams that's finally getting a little healthier. They finally got their guys back. They know how big this game is. And you see the Seahawks. They started out hot, and they are struggling lately. 1-4 straight up and against the spread in their last 5 games. I think sort of the worm has turned a bit for Seattle. I expect a lot of points in this game. The total here, 48.5, as I mentioned. But I think the Rams are gonna go into Seattle, win the game kind of handily, and people are going to start talking about them as a playoff team like we did from the beginning of the year. Mike, you have a lean in this game.
Yeah, I'm looking at totals here. Remember the game that the Lions played with the Seahawks? It was just back and forth, back and forth. Nobody could really stop anyone. That's what I think we see in this particular game here. So I like the Rams. Another, just a friendly number, just like we talked about with the Dallas Cowboys, over 12.5 in the first half. A touchdown and 2 field goals, 2 touchdowns. It gets us home. I also like Jared Goff over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I like Puka Nakua's longest reception over 22.5 yards because nobody can tackle that man in space. Just looking at overs. If you're someone who likes to build same game parlays, things like that, this is your game. Have at it. I think we see a lot of yardage picked up in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you entirely on points being scored. Anytime I get a chance to drop a 10-unit nuclear whale play on the Rams and Matthew Stafford, I'm going to do it. The Jaguars at the Eagles. Jaguars keep trying to hang around and save their season and then just completely disappoint. They are massive dogs here, Larry. 7.5-point underdogs to the Eagles in Philadelphia with a total of 45.5. Philly out of their bye, really, really rounding into good shape and looking like, not the best team in the NFC, but one of the best teams in the conference. And certainly, if Jalen Hurts has all his weapons, a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and that was a soul-crushing defeat for the Jaguars at home. They put up a good fight, come back, and then lose at the buzzer to the Packers. And now you travel on the road. Christian Kirk is gone for the year. And this is just a dream matchup for Jalen Hurts because the Jags, A, do not pressure the quarterback, and B, they play more man coverage than anyone in football. And oh yeah, A.J. Brown is sitting there. He destroys man coverage more than anyone in football. They're 4-0, 3-1 against the spread with A.J. Brown in the lineup. He's going to go nuclear, as you just talked about, a nuclear play. I believe he'll go nuclear, and I love the Eagles, who are still a little bit undervalued because of the Commanders being so great. I like the Eagles to roll at home.
I lost my 10-unit whale play because Brinson didn't mention that this is a Doug Peterson revenge game. This is about as revengey as you can get, and I figured that would be the first thing out of Brinson's mouth, but it wasn't. So I like the Eagles in a teaser here. I mean, Brian Thomas, he was out 2 to 4 weeks reported, and now it looks like he might end up playing like Michael Pittman. So we'll see what happens there. If the Jaguars have their receivers back, I don't know if I want to leave the 7.5 with Philly, but it seems like Jacksonville's waving the white flag with the Cam Robinson trade. I'm not sure how the offensive line keeps Philadelphia's defensive front at bay. And like Larry said, the Eagles receiver should have success against this defense. It's given up 30-plus points to the Colts, the Bears, and the Packers in the last 4 games. So, if this arises and you want to play the Eagles, I think you're fine laying it at 8 and 8.5. But I'd wait and see if you can get the 7 if Jaguars get positive news, because 7 is a big number to have. You can get that push there. I, on the other hand, I'm just going to throw it in a teaser with the Texans plus 7.5 and the Eagles minus 1.5.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, RJ. I think it's a perfect teaser leg right now. When you look at this, the fact that you can get it at 1.5, or if it goes to 1, sure. I'd rather have it now before it requires more than 2. So I think this is the best teaser leg on the board in the NFL this week. It's a home game for the Eagles. There's not a lot of focus on this team, but I think the matchup, as you guys laid out, is just incredible. I think Saquon's going to be able to do his thing. Jalen Hurts is going to be awesome in the red zone. And then when it comes to just that random deep shot to A.J. Brown and man coverage, you're talking about big play after big play. I don't see many drives where the Eagles don't walk away with points or at least take 5-6 minutes off the clock. So I think this is a great spot to back the Eagles in a teaser.
Yeah, actually, I reverse engineered a whale play against RJ, knowing he expected the revenge game drop there. That is maybe my worst mistake of the season. I've made so many mistakes. I'm disappointed in myself. I'll be in timeout for a little while. But first, let's talk about Bears at Cardinals. This is a game of 2 NFC contenders. All of a sudden, of course, the Bears just a heartbreaking loss to the Commanders last week with Jaden Daniels. Heisman moment, if you will. The Cardinals are a 1-point favorite here with a big total. RJ, what do you like in this game?
I like the Chicago team total over 22.5. I think the look ahead line of Chicago -1 made more sense than this line. It's not like much has changed. Arizona's won 3 of the last 4, but they needed last minute field goals in all 3 of those wins. And Chicago was barely almost 5-2. Of course, the Hail Mary ruined that. But I think these offenses are pretty close, and the Chicago defense is much better. So I don't know why the Bears wouldn't be catching the point here. Chicago also second in red zone offense and first in red zone defense. That matters in what's expected to be a close game. That could be the difference maker there. Arizona's bottom 2 in third down defense, points per drive, and percentage of drives that ends in a score. Defense has struggled the last 5 games. I see this as a game where Chicago's going to score a bunch of points, and their defense is good enough to limit the Cardinals and get the win here. But I think the over 22.5 at -120 is a better play than taking the Bears at +1.
Yeah, Matt Eberflus is the laughing stock of America, basically, in terms of the NFL this week. And I just think there's a little bit too much piling on because it is a good spot for the Bears offense, like RJ says, when they have played bad defenses. And I'm not ready to say Arizona's turned the corner offensively, defensively, especially after what we saw the Dolphins do. I think the Bears offense breaks out after a very tough game in Washington, where they were pressured 52% of the time. I think it's going to be a much cleaner pocket. I like the Bears on the road.
All right. We got 2 primetime games. One features a quarterback controversy. Joe Flacco starting over Anthony Richardson for the foreseeable future. And the other, no controversy in Kansas City. We know who the big dog is. Patrick Mahomes hosting Baker Mayfield in that beautiful creamsicle. We will tell you what to bet on Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football coming up next here on The Early Edge. Welcome back to the Week 9 Early Edge NFL Pick Show on this happy Halloween Thursday. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, R.J. White, and Larry Hartstein breaking down every game on the slate. And we've got, when back in April or May or whenever the NFL schedule makers were huddled up, they said to themselves, Week 9, Sunday Night Football, we need to make sure we get both Sam Darnold and Joe Flacco squaring off against each other in like a critical game on Sunday Night Football. The Colts at the Vikings. The Vikings are -5.5 here with a total of 46.5. Obviously, Mike, the news this week that Anthony Richardson would be benched, not just for like a game, but Shane Steichen said sort of for a stretch here. They're going with Joe Flacco. He pulled off the playoff magic last year for the Browns. Does he have enough juice in the tank to take down Sam Darnold in this Vikings defense?
Oh, I think he's got enough juice to potentially get him to the playoffs. That division is also one that is wide open, particularly with the Texans in a rough spot on Thursday Night Football tonight. I think the number in this game, though, should be between 3.5 and 4. It's right where I make it. So I think it's just a big number. One that I think Flacco is competent enough that they can certainly cover this spread. It is a difficult place to go play a primetime game. There's no doubt about that. But I think this is a good spot for Flacco. We've seen him play okay at times this year, but the big difference in this one is he's going to have the workhorse running back and not a running back by committee and guys that probably shouldn't be starting in this league at running back. Now you've got Jonathan Taylor back there to help shoulder some of the load. I think it's obviously huge for Michael Pittman. He had 1 catch for 16 yards on 6 targets against the Houston Texans. I think that it's really going to be a situation where the Colts are going to be able to move the football, work the clock. I think Minnesota's taken a step backwards due to some of the injuries that they've had. And ultimately, I think we just get a classic 1-score football game. And I'm going to trust that 1 score is going to be 3 or 4 points. So give me the Colts here plus 5.5.
You know, Will, I was getting kind of tired after this long show, and I was thinking about just tapping out for one game, maybe for this one play. But no, I am actually going to give you a play on this game that I really like. I do like Joe Flacco to perform well against this blitz because he does make those quick decisions. But the matchup I love is on the other side. Kevin O'Connell, extra time to prepare at home against a Gus Bradley defense, which doesn't really change much. And their team total sitting at 26.5. This is a team that got to 29 and 34 against better defenses earlier in the season at home. I just love the spot for the Minnesota offense. I don't want to play the spread, but I love Minnesota to get at least 27.
Yeah, and it feels like a Sunday night home game Vikings sort of, struggling a little bit lately after that hot start. Justin Jefferson, you feed him the rock, and he gets going in this game against that aforementioned Gus Bradley defense. Monday night, a massive game between the Buccaneers and the Chiefs, the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. 9-point favorites here over Baker Mayfield and the banged-up Bucs. Chris Godwin out for the year. Mike Evans still dealing with injury, we think, and Kate Otten, the featured pass catcher for Tampa Bay, which helps explain why this total is so jacked up, Mike. You have the Chiefs as part of a teaser, yeah?
Yeah, only at 8.5. At 9, I would shy away, but I would wait it out. I think it goes back to 8.5, or you're able to grab an 8.5. And at that point, I would pair it with the Eagles, get the Chiefs 2.5, Eagles 1.5. And the reason why I'm saying hold off on the 3 is that they win by 3 a push. That does not cash on a teaser leg. But I think this is a great spot for Kansas City to simply get in and get out with a win. It's always touchy for them covering those big spreads, but there's also situations like this where they just are in control of a football game. The outcome's never really in doubt. That's what I see here. They still have one of the best home field advantages in the NFL, and it's because of that defense. This Tampa team is beat up offensively. Kansas City is going to rely on that defense once again. And I actually think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be relevant for Kansas City. I know he wasn't super effective in that last game, but I was very encouraged by what I saw at that time. So I like Kansas City here as a teaser leg.
Yeah, so in a weird way, I'm taking the Bucs as a best bet here at +9, and I don't disagree with you at all, Mike, in the sense that this feels like a game where Kansas City finds a way to win. Like I don't think Tampa's going to jump out and just take off running. But you look at just sort of like the way that the Chiefs are winning. It's clearly and eerily, if you will, reminiscent of the Patriots and everything they did in the middle to latter stages of their dynasty, where they would just find ways to win games early, get the record out to where it needs to be, figure out a way to get the number 1 overall seed or the top 2 seed, get a bye, and you have that home field advantage, and you just turn it on when the playoffs come. Now, I do think Hopkins a huge help, and again, this is sort of the paradox here. I think they'll be able to throw against the Buccaneers defense. And I think you'll see Kelsey, Hopkins, Xavier Worthy. I think Mahomes has a nice game. But because of that, it's going to force Baker Mayfield into situations where he's going to be dropping back and throwing too. And I think Baker shows up in primetime. This is like a kind of revenge game for former Big 12, Big 10, Big 12 quarterbacks like Texas. There's a Texas Tech connection. I don't know. There's like a recruiting thing with Baker and Patrick Mahomes. I think Baker shows up is the point. And I think Baker, even without all his weapons, is able to score enough points that they get there and cover the spread. RJ, you've got a Week 10 look-ahead line for us.
Yes, I like the Chargers -7 against the Titans. The Titans are expected to beat New England by more than a field goal right now. I can't see a big overperformance in that game that would boost their rating with people. But Chargers, we all love the Chargers, short favorite against Cleveland. If bad Winston shows up, the defense looks great. Or if the Chargers passing game evolves like we like the signs are there and we see it happening, they could run away with this game. And a big Chargers win there will start to get them treated like the Bills and the Lions were against this Tennessee team, where they were underdogs by 8.5, 11.5 in those games, did not come close to covering. So people will want to be on the Chargers. I think that line gets up to 9 to protect from the teaser. So you want to get the value on that, I would get it now at 7.
All right. Great stuff ahead of Week 9. Been hot all year. Going to stay hot this week. Fun, spooky season ahead. Make sure if you want to get spooky with some winners, go to sportsline.com/join and get 60% off. That's 60% off. Foolish. An annual plan with promo code WINNERS, WINNERS. And make sure to subscribe to the Early Edge and Daily Sportsline Betting Podcast. Get all the picks in your feed. For RJ, for Larry, for Mike, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys later.